my hair fell out because I was dealing with I was refusing to address the emotions and the trauma that I was experiencing in my life. At that time, my father passed away from a heroin overdose. I refused to acknowledge that I was molested as a child, that I was bullied, and that I was doing all that stuff to prove to everybody in Lancaster, Texas, like, you were wrong about me. I'm going to be a success. I'm going to show you. All the stuff that I wasn't dealing with, my body couldn't take it anymore. What the mind can't handle, it imposes on the body. My hair fell out because I refused to deal with those emotions. I refused to deal with those traumas. And I say all the time, emotions don't die. They're like energy. They just transform, and they show up in ways you don't think that they will. They don't die. In that moment, I realized, Purvis, you need to start dealing with your stuff. And it was that moment that I recognized the importance of dealing with your emotions.
You gonna learn today.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Are you ready?
This ain't the radio.
Are you ready?
Let's go.
The Street Report Podcast.
He reps for the DMV to the fullest.
Hosted by Easy.
Mr. President.
It is great to talk to you.
Raw and uncut.
I'll let your boys, it's Jay-Z.
DJ Khaled.
What up, though? It's your boy, Big Snoop, D-O-double-G. Rocking out with my nephew, Easy Street.
Easy Street.
The Street Report Podcast, hosted by Easy.
All the way from the planet of Brooklyn, my birthplace. Purvis Taylor III. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thank you for taking time out to be on the Street Report podcast. Now, just a little bit about Mr. Taylor III. He's an award-winning celebrity life coach, inspirational speaker, facilitator, mentor, and an author. He's a graduate of the University of Miami, where he received a bachelor's of business administration degree in marketing. You're from Dallas, Texas, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. After you graduated, you launched your career in New York City working in the entertainment industry. I'm pretty sure that we have a lot of friends in the business over there at Def Jam Records.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You've written 2 international selling inspirational books, Pervis Principles, Volumes 1 and 2. Also the co-author of the relationship book, Single Man, Married Man. And you won 2 award judge organization new book awards for best relationship book as well. Also, you are currently working on a brand new book that's going to come out. It is called Survival Mode, and we will talk about the book as well. Now, when I first found out about you, Mr. Taylor, what really jumped out to me when I saw your bio was emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
I really wasn't aware of emotional intelligence until I read this book entitled Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and Sean Greaves. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this book, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this book pretty much, I don't want to say is the blueprint, but what is one of the, main sources that people have been pointed to. It was the first book that I came into contact. I had no idea what emotional intelligence was about, and we're going to talk about that in this discussion. We'll talk about how that intersects with black boys, men. We'll talk solutions. All right, so Mr. Taylor, break down to the individuals that are listening right now exactly what is emotional intelligence.
So, in short, emotional intelligence is being able to identify the emotion that you're experiencing and being able to process it and to come out to a positive outcome. So ultimately with emotional intelligence, you want to be able to have a response, not a reaction. And true emotional intelligence is being able to spot it in somebody else and to process it through them where you can help them.
Okay, so what we're
you can identify an emotion in another person and you've been able to process and navigate through it to get a positive result as well.
Right. And so this is what we call an act of self-awareness, correct?
Absolutely.
Talk about the importance of self-awareness.
It's absolutely everything, because so many of us are walking around not knowing how we're showing up in the world. And for those few of us who are aware of it, we have a responsibility to make changes in how we show up in the world, how we navigate with each other and with ourselves in the world around us. Self-awareness that's the only way you're going to change is if you are self-aware. That's the only way things are going to change is if you're self-aware.
Actually, you know what, Purvis, listening to you, I really think that there should be a course on this, like in elementary school. There should be classes on emotional intelligence. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree. Because, part of, what we learn is happy, mad, and sad, right? And emotions they're felt in various degrees and intensities. So beyond mad, there's fury, there's rage. Beyond sadness, there's depression, there's feeling blue, feeling melancholy. And those things are handled differently. And it really expands our lexicon and how people are able to receive us. So if a child can be able to say, I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling overwhelmed, we can help that. But we can't help if the child doesn't know how to articulate what it is that they're experiencing.
So one thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to emotional intelligence, of course, being aware of what it is. Let's talk about why it's important, because I think that especially in the Black community, and there are plenty of examples that I'm going to give you a couple right now, how these things can affect our personal lives and how they can affect our business lives. Let's talk about the business first. We don't even have to look very far. Here in Washington, D.C., we have a football team, the Washington Redskins. They're an okay team. That's all I'll say. I don't want to turn this into a sports discussion. But last week, one of our linebackers by the name of Mason Foster goes on Instagram and basically says, I hate this organization and the fan base sucks, and posted this on Instagram.
Yeah.
So he had to come back a couple days later and say he was sorry. I was in my emotions. I was feeling some kind of way. I'm fully invested in this team. I want to stay here. I made a mistake. He took one thing that I will give Mason Foster is this. I'll give him props, for manning up, so to speak, doing the right thing and apologizing. He was accountable for what he said.
Right.
But that's one example of you being in your feelings and saying something instead of taking that deep breath and thinking before I hit this button. I don't think that people connect the dots and think, they just say what they want to say whenever they're feeling it. And that is problematic for us.
It's extremely problematic because I think to myself, if he just would have paused and said, maybe I don't need to post this. But writing it out could have been therapeutic for him. And then he said, you know what, me writing this out is enough, and let me just delete it and let me go talk to somebody. But I think a lot of times with men, especially, we don't think like that.
Right.
Because we don't have a culture that encourages that.
Right. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But think about the millions of dollars from a business standpoint, the millions of dollars that this brother could lose because the team may feel like, well, hey, do we want this guy to be on our squad?
Yeah. And listen, I teach my young men all the time, emotional decisions can lead to disaster. And it's like, it could affect your pockets. And I'm sure my brother is experiencing that right now. I bet he won't do that again.
Right. And I mean, I think that's probably the main motivation, Purvis. That's the main motivation why he came out and made an official statement and said that he was sorry and he took, accountability for his actions and his words and said that it won't happen again. I mean, because he's trying to protect that bag. I mean, for real.
Right.
Now, and we know for a fact in our personal lives, this is important too. Think about how many times we have said things that we would just sit back and say, oh my God, why did I just say that?
Yeah.
I was in my feelings. Why did I just say, I was a true story. I'm not going to say any names. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. And she was telling me about how she, she's a single mother raising this 20-year-old young man who's not doing well in school, has, feeling a little down about, him not doing well in school and not being able to play basketball. And, and I said, well, you might want to, I was like, all black men and mothers, who raise us, we get to this point where, mom gets frustrated. Look, what are you doing? And they
Right.
get you need to get up out of there, from hanging out with those boys, or cut that music down, or, direct us to kind of, push us in a direction of doing something about our situation. And a lot of times that emotion that mom puts out there, it's not received very well. Next thing you know, we're in an argument. Things get said, and, this is when these walls go up. And next thing you know, he's talking about, I'm moving out.
Exactly.
So on the personal tip, that's just one example of how these emotions play a role. But I wanted to just stop right there and park right there and talk about, like, what do we need to be doing, in the Black community as parents to be aware of our emotions and how we display them towards our children. But what do we need to also be able to teach our children about their emotions so they can be able to survive this brave new world?
Yeah, I often think about my childhood, and one of the things that my parents did that I really liked is that they let me be emotional, right? Now, they did have restrictions, like don't do that in public, and they did try to suppress me being emotional in public. But one of the things they did do was allow me to speak and cry, do all of those things that I needed to do, because out of my family, I am the most emotional one. I am the one who's most demonstrative in his emotions. And so one of the things I think is very, very important is allowing your kids to be who they are, right? In terms of how they process and how they express. Don't siphon off how your child wants to emote. A couple weeks ago, I was doing one of my emotional intelligence sessions at Brooklyn College. And one young man said to me, he was like, I don't deal with my emotions because my family has told me to not deal with my emotions. So he said, like, in relationships, I just cut off. I just completely check out in terms of when emotions need to come in play. He said that he knows that's because his family, their response was, don't cry, or we're going to whoop you for crying. So it was like, you know what I mean? So
I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yeah, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And it was like, and he said from that moment, he made a decision to not ever deal with his emotions. And now he's seeing how damning that is and damaging that is to his life now at 20 years old, because now he doesn't even know how, because he's siphoned off a piece of who he was. And now he has to go all the way back to like 8 or 9, 10 years old to figure out who he is emotionally, And so, that's the one thing that parents can do is allow your kids to express and educate yourselves on emotional health and mental health. You know what I mean? Like, we have so many things available to us. There's so many articles. Like, you sent me a bunch of articles that you read about. There's so much information available about the importance and why emotional intelligence is important and why suppressing emotions is dangerous. So educate yourselves as parents, and also too with parents, also understand how I think it's for parents to understand what is your go-to emotion, right? Because we all have a go-to emotion. And for men, usually it's anger or indifference. So understanding why is that your go-to emotion and understanding what's underneath that as parents. So for a woman, a single parent mother, I always tell my clients, my coaching clients who are single parent mothers, I say to them, I said, listen, you have to understand that women by nature speak almost 30,000 words a day, right? And men typically speak 10,000 words a day. So there is a 20,000 word gap in processing and in communication. So you have to understand that men just do not communicate emotionally the way that you do. So you have to give your son permission to process and say to him, let's not talk about it right now. I'm going to give you a couple hours. We can talk about it then. Something simple as that.
I'm so glad that you said that, Purvis, because see, that is the secret sauce of this. And that was one of the things that I learned in the book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And I implemented this into my life. And I also taught my children. Now, did those little niggas listen?
Right.
Sometimes they did. Sometimes they didn't. But at least I made them aware. So I practiced this thing called the 24-hour rule. Say somebody pisses you off, says the wrong thing, does the wrong thing, whether it be at work, whether it be at church, whether it be a friend, somebody on Facebook, somebody on Twitter, anybody that pisses me off, I try to wait 24 hours before I respond. And I realized when I first started doing this that I made responses different. If I would have made the response right now while I'm pissed because you really messed up, that my response would be different 24 hours later. Talk about why that is.
Because you have, so like there's this guy named Thich Nhat Hanh, and he uses this illustration of like a murky, like dirty water, right? And he says, what happens when you allow the cup and water to settle? The dirt goes to the bottom, it settles to the bottom. What is true in that illustration is true in our emotions. When we allow ourselves to settle, the emotions settle. And so while you still may be a little, isn't the intensity is not the same. So the degree of it is not the same. So you've allowed your emotions to kind of settle a little bit, and you can have a little bit more clarity in the way that you're going to respond. And in doing that, you're choosing to respond and not react.
And that's very important. Just wait 24 hours, because the way our brains are wired, I think somewhere in this book that I read, it says that you know, when something comes into our hearts and minds, you know, that upsets us, that makes us feel some type of emotion, whether it's good or bad, that it enters into this part of our brain called the limbic or something like that. And
absolutely. And that is the part that holds familiarity. And that's why it's, you know what I mean? Like that it's so funny because everything is so interconnected body wise. That's one of the things I learned when I went to grad school, because I have my master's in clinical psychology. And one of the things that I learned is like the body stores negativity. And that's why they call it positive reinforcement, right? Because the body holds on to negative things a lot longer than positive things. So when somebody triggers something, in you that's negative, your response is so immediate because your body knows that. And that's why it's oddly enough when you give a young man praise or you give a person praise, they necessarily don't believe it because we're accustomed to negativity. And it's just physiological. All human beings, we're accustomed to negativity.
And that sucks, man. I wish that was the other way. I wish that was the other way around. And it also, that could tell you something about social media, why negative stuff gets more likes and more comments than something positive.
Absolutely.
Which is
absolutely
crazy to me. So again, you know, wait 24 hours, you know, and take some deep breaths. And the other part about, you know, before we make a move into our next area of our discussion, Pervis, our bodies tell us. Our bodies tell us physiologically, like when we're upset, there are things that happen to our bodies that are signals that you can be able to feel, that you can use as a signal to say, hey, look, man, I'm in my emotions. I might want to be careful with what I say.
Listen, when I start sweating and that's how angry I am, that I'm overheating, I said, you know what? Let me take a step back. Let me go for a walk. You know what I mean? Because I want to circumvent that, because I know when I get into my bag, it's a wrap. And so for me, I have to do the same thing that I teach my young men, teach my male clients. I need to take a pause and breathe and try to clear my head, or go run, go to the gym, do something to get that aggression out of my being. Because you're absolutely right. Our bodies do let us know when something is off or something's triggered within us.
Yeah, you know, we say in the black community, hey, my pressure up, man. They done got my that is it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
When your pressure is up, you might want to just not say nothing at all, because you might say something that will change the course of your life, their life. You never can tell, man. And I mean, I really, you know, hate to get biblical with it, but the truth of the matter is, man, the power of life and death lies in the tongue. And
absolutely,
I see this on television so much with individuals of saying things they wish that they could take back, and now you're out of millions of dollars because you said XYZ because you was in your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the main reasons why I'm also not really a fan of reality TV, because I think that you know, our young people are watching reality TV, and I know, you know, this is a new generation. You know, we watched other shows, you know, and we got our kicks, and, you know, we enjoyed ourselves. And this generation has now these shows that show people throwing champagne in people's faces, cursing one another out, having these fights. And then we see this happening, and then these kids elicit that same behavior at schools, in elementary schools, in high schools, and middle schools, all over the country. Talk about that really quick.
Yeah, it's really deep. Like, you know, so many people, they live their lives vicariously through a lot of reality shows. Like, and I see kids, like the way that they act. I study people. You know, that's what I do for a living. I'm seeing kids, like when I'm like having a session with a client, or I'm in a public place, and I'm just seeing how the kids, the culture, the language that they're using. I'm like, oh, they sound like such and such on Love and Hip Hop, or they sound like this person on Atlanta Housewives. It's really deep, because I think everybody's looking. They're looking for something, right? And we don't know exactly what that is. They're looking for, attention, or we're looking to be seen. We're looking to be heard. Right. And you see those individuals seem like they're being seen and they're being heard. Right. But we don't realize that's causing further more damage into the world, because the need, I always tell people this, what drives us the most are our unmet needs. Right. And so for a lot of these reality TV stars, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but for a lot of them, I feel like their unmet need is, I want to be successful, I want to be famous, and I want the world to see that I'm successful and famous at whatever cost that is. And I think that's the same thing for our youth and our young adults. They want to be significant. They want to be something at whatever the cost, because they don't think education or wherever they are is enough.
We're on the line right now with Pervis Taylor III, who is a brother that's from Dallas, Texas, living in Brooklyn right now and doing some really great work. It's written some very good books. We will talk about his next project coming up very shortly. Our conversation right now is in regards to emotional intelligence, what it is. We're going to shift and talk about, you know, our boys, because, you know, the African American community is continuing to experience, fatherlessness, and mothers trying to raise boys to men. And we have, I don't know what the stats are right now, but we have an overwhelming amount of African American mothers who are raising these little black boys and doing the best that they possibly can. And let me say, some mothers have done an incredible job. Y'all are truly the MVPs of the black community.
Absolutely.
No doubt, with no question, because
no doubt about it. Yeah.
For us to be able to be the men that we are today, and there are some good brothers out there that have done some incredible things, not just famous guys like LeBron James or anyone else. I'm talking about regular guys that are amazing fathers, amazing people. But, you know, one of the things that I want to talk about is this, and you alluded to this earlier, Pervis, in regards to emotional intelligence, and you used the word that I want to key in just for a little bit before we talk about black boys, and that word is mental health, because there is a part of this emotional intelligence piece that is directly connected to mental health, and I want to give you an opportunity to speak on that.
Absolutely. I always say that emotional health is mental health, right? Because there's always, you know, a thought in the mind, and it's usually connected to an emotion, and vice versa. And so that's very important that we have that understanding that emotions and mental health go hand in hand, especially within our community. I always say oftentimes that men scream at a frequency that only they can hear, right? And in the work that I do, my job is to bring that scream from the inside to the outside where it can be healed. And when you don't deal with an emotion, when you suppress an emotion, it can trigger a mental health issue. And that's just the reality. So many people
say that again, bro. Please stop right there, because I don't think, I'm just hoping that people to hear this, listen to what Pervis just says. Please say this one more time.
When you continuously suppress an emotion, it can trigger a mental health episode in your life.
I don't think that a lot of people, we see things happening a lot in the world. We read a headline, a man set this woman on fire. He killed his whole family. Yes, man killed his whole family. And we don't think about, okay, what was the button that got pushed in this individual's life that got them to the place for them to be emotionally and mentally unfit to do something like that. And rarely do we ever look at those parts of the story.
Absolutely. And I using myself as an example. I put up a post. I don't know if you saw it on my Instagram page, but I put up a post of me and a friend at Kim Porter's baby shower. And then the caption, I'm saying, like,
okay, Kim, you're talking about Kim. You're talking about Kim Porter, who recently died, had the children Kim, with Diddy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is at her baby shower for the twins. And in the picture, it looks like I'm happy. I just got signed to Wilhelmina Models. I'm working at Def Jam. Things seem to be going great. But what you don't see in the picture is the back of my head is completely bald, right? My hair fell out because I was I was refusing to address the emotions and the trauma that I was experiencing in my life. At that time, my father passed away from a heroin overdose. I refused to acknowledge that I was molested as a child, that I was bullied, and that I was doing all that stuff to prove to everybody in Lancaster, Texas, like, you were wrong about me. I'm going to be a success. I'm going to show you. So all the stuff that I wasn't dealing with, my body couldn't take it anymore. What the mind can't handle, it imposes on the body. My hair fell out. Because I refused to deal with those emotions. I refused to deal with those traumas. And I say all the time, emotions don't die. They're like energy. They just transform, and they show up in ways you don't think that they will. They don't die. And my hair fell out. And that moment, I realized, Pervis, you need to start dealing with your stuff. And it was that moment that I recognized the importance of dealing with your emotions. I had to defy toxic masculinity or the cultural mandate on what it means to be a man. I wanted to be I said to myself, either I'm going to make it through this or I'm going to die. And it was just that serious for me. And so that's why I do this work that I do, because I understand at 26 years old, I literally was having a nervous breakdown and didn't even know it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. Pervis, let me change gears and talk about some of the young boys that you deal with. We know that you're out in the community talking to young people. I've seen some photos and some video of you in some classroom settings speaking to African-American boys. This is something that I've also in my career been extremely invested in, going out to schools, talking to young people, listening to young people, being involved, hearing their stories, and trying to kind of stand in the gap and provide information to, be a service to the community in any way that I can. And one of the things that I've had to institute in my motivational speaking when I go speak to young people is I have had to learn how to break the ice with these young brothers, because when you come into a room and young brothers have been sitting in these desks, and whoever told them, now we're going to have so-and-so come speak to you, walls go up higher than the Empire State Building.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so after I realized this, I understood that, and also from looking at you know, sometimes speaking at school events, and I'm seeing other speakers that are going before me, looking at the body language of some of the young brothers that are there. Their heads are down, their face is on their chin, they're texting, they're not.
Arms across.
Yeah, they're exact. All their body language is telling you, what the hell are these niggas talking about? Why am I here? I could be doing something else. They're not listening at all. So I've had to, you know, kind of outthink them. And I ask a question like, who's the best rapper out right now? Who's better, Cardi B or Nicki Minaj? And of course, you know, then the conversation erupts, and I broke the ice. I got them talking about rap. I got them talking. I'm meeting them where they are, and now I can be able to get them into a discussion of things that I really want to talk about. But let's talk about what that is rooted in, why we have these problems. And I think that it has something to do with, and maybe I'm wrong, does that have anything to do with hyper masculinity?
Absolutely. And it absolutely has a lot to do with hypermasculinity. And you know, hypermasculinity is measured in, you know, physical strength, aggression, and, you know, sexuality, right? And aggression being a main thing, meaning like you got to be angry, you got to be aggressive, you can't allow yourself to feel like that's weak, that's feminine. And so a lot of it is rooted in toxic masculinity. It's also rooted in protecting oneself, right? Part of toxic masculinity is it doesn't, as a component of it, doesn't house vulnerability and being openness, right? It doesn't teach that. It teaches to have a wall up. It teaches to be, one of the things I'll never forget, is switching gears, but it's going to make sense. I'll never forget working at Def Jam, the first day there, Leroy Cohen told me, he said, you got to come here with your knuckles on the floor. You got to come here like with your grit face on, with your grimy face on. I'll never forget that he told me that my first day. And
I laugh because I know who Leroy Cohen is. For individuals that don't know who Mr. Cohen is, he's been a fixture in the music industry in the background in artist management forever. Yeah. And he's a white guy that's been very instrumental in the business. Recently, I remember, just really quick, not to interrupt you too much, Leroy Cohen came to the radio station with Young Thug. Young Thug couldn't even really conduct the interview, so Mr. Cohen did virtually all the talking for him. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's part of it. It's like he told me that in him making that statement, he basically said to me, Purvis, who you are is not going to be enough for you to survive at Def Jam. And so it's the same thing. Like he literally told me that. But our society and culture literally tells our boys who you really are is not enough to survive. So you have to be this way. And so to your point, it is absolutely part of the reason why they're so closed off. And I think also too, you know, to be honest, I think a lot of times they're like, man, I'm seeing Evie Street. He's on the radio. He's successful. He don't know nothing about what I've been through. And I don't know if that's possible for me to have what he has, or if that's possible for me to have what Purvis has. So my icebreaker is I just tell them straight off the gate who I am and everything that I've been through, the ugliness. It's like, I know you see a brother standing right here and I'm getting paid and I'm, you know, things look great in my life right now. But when I was your age, I was dealing with this, and going down the list. Because I want them to know I'm not telling you nothing that I myself wouldn't do or haven't done or haven't experienced. So my pain may not look like yours, but I understand it. And that's the one thing we have in common, is that we both experience pain and hurt and disappointment.
So, Purvis, how do we as a community, as parents, as well, address this whole idea and concept of hypermasculinity? Because these young brothers, man, you know, they always have and we could see the mask. We see it. We've worn the mask too. Every time I see it, it's like, he thinks he's hard. Oh, I gotta be hard. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I gotta be the tough guy. Or I've been to concerts and seen people. It's interesting. I've seen concerts where a brother would go to a concert and won't clap.
Right.
and it's your favorite artist that you just saw on stage. You were turned up, you were lit, so to speak. You were taking photos, you were on Instagram, but then the guy goes off the stage. It's just like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I got to get a hold of myself. I can't be too excited about what I just experienced because my hyper masculinity is saying this is not a cool thing for black men to be, young black boys to be doing. Do you see that too?
Or absolutely, or even the smile. So like at the end of my sessions, right, me and my business partner, Jeff, we like to take pictures with the young men, right? And I have to tell them all the time, please smile. Like something that's showing your smile goes against the grain of hypermasculinity. Because, like hypermasculinity, you got to protect yourself. You hard. Like how you say you hard. You can't clap, you can't smile, you can't do anything demonstrative of expressing joy, excitement, anything. You have to be just hard 24/7.
Which is really
and
bad.
I'm saying,
it's really bad.
But also hard to maintain. Like I applaud these brothers who can do it.
You know what? The other part about it, though, Purvis, is just I'm so glad that this is the very first time that I've ever had a conversation with anybody about this topic, which is I'm thankful. I'm thankful, and I'm glad that we're doing this so we can get this out because this is uber important. And I'm going to tell you why, especially for the sisters that are listening to the Street Report podcast right now. So we're talking about young boys, young African-American males who are practicing this behavior of hypermasculinity, of shutting off their emotions, of not showing their emotions in situations where clearly they could be feeling joy or pain, or somebody has told them, suck it up. Crying is for girls. Don't let people see you express emotions. Fast forward to when you are 17, 18, 19, 20, and you start having a relationship with a woman. What is one of the number one things that sisters complain about brothers today in regards to lack of emotion?
They're emotionally unavailable.
Yes,
and they can't communicate.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what it's rooted in. We've been practicing as young black males how to be defunct of our emotions. And so now we're grown or getting grown, or we're going to, move into a relationship with a young lady, but we don't know how to make ourselves emotionally available. Hell, even Jay-Z talked about this in his last album with Beyonce.
Right. But then also, too, like I always say, men's issues is women's issues and women's issues is men's issues, because there are women who feed into that as well. I definitely see mothers telling their sons, you better not cry. You better suck it up. I've seen women tell their sons that. So it's a universal thing. It's a male and female thing. And the thing is that we both got to come to a place to say, like, this is not working. This is not the way. So it's not just something that men have to do. It's something that some women have to also change their minds about certain things as well.
Absolutely. We definitely need to elevate our understanding of emotional intelligence, how these things operate. They're very important.
And one of the things I would like to add, for the audience, it's very important that we understand that, 7 out of 10 suicides are committed by men. And African-American suicides in men have increased rapidly, with the number one group being young boys between the ages of 9 and 12. Think about that. That's the highest suicide rate within the African-American communities. It was a point in time where suicides we weren't even considered in the equation when it came to suicide. So this is telling us that there really needs to be a conversation had about this. And this, again, is why I do the work that I do. Because these 9 and 12-year-olds, if they're killing themselves at 9 and 12 years old, imagine how thin their threshold is to deal with emotions or trauma. If we can teach them at that age, like, yo, you don't have to make that decision, or it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to cry. It's okay to deal with that emotion. It's okay to say that you're hurt and that you're embarrassed. Whatever that feeling is, it's okay. Maybe we can prevent that.
We're on the line with Pervis Taylor III, brother out of Dallas, Texas, living in Brooklyn right now, doing some amazing work with young people, with adults in regards to emotional intelligence and a whole bunch of other areas. He has a book that's coming out. We're going to talk about his book next. Before we move on to talk about his latest book, I like to say this. I think that it's important that, and this is what I did, when I got the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradberry and John Graves, and it's spelled Greaves. It led me to emotional intelligence test that you can take online. And I took this EI test to see where I was, to get like a baseline, to find out exactly where I was, you know, and then it led me to, okay, these are your problem areas. You can do these things, you know, and this is all about personal development, about you growing as an individual to understand how your emotions operate, you know, how they're affecting your lives, whether it be a good way or in a bad way, just how to be better, man, emotionally and spiritually and eventually mentally, because mental health is an incredibly huge problem in the Black community right now, and we see evidence of that daily. With that being said,
absolutely.
Do me a favor. Let's talk about this book here. You have a book coming out, Survival Mode. Why'd you give it that title?
Man, God gave me that title. I literally was thinking about how we in life just survive. We just want to make it, right? We just want to just get by. And I said to myself, like, I was tired of just getting by. I wanted to thrive. You know, I dated a girl who was a doctor, and she told me about this term called failure to thrive, FTT. And I was like, the term is failure to thrive, meaning that you're not operating at a level that you should be operating at. It's not called failure to survive. It's called failure to thrive. And so what I wanted to do was create a bridge between survival and thriving. And I merged the two, and I came up with Survival. And I wrote it for men. It's a book written especially for men to teach them how to process and deal with their emotions and traumas in a way that it's clinical in its the concept of it, but the way it's disseminated and distilled is very practical. Because I realized that a lot of men are just not going to ever see a therapist. And so what I wanted to do is create a book that's easy to read and give them steps and stages that are easy to do in terms of approach, and get them to a place where they're showing up not only for themselves, but in their relationships and the world around them, and understanding that thriving and being whole is possible for men. And I know it's difficult to have it as a concept because we've never seen it modeled before, but to be something that you've never seen before can be just equally as exciting as it is fearful. But I wanted to create a book that's going to lead that where young men think about wholeness as a goal, like how they think about getting the bag as a goal, and men thinking about that as well, and being there for their sons, and being there for the wives, and being there for the communities. Like where that's something that's in the forefront of their minds, besides everything, the material things that life offers. So I'm really excited about the book. One of my mentees read it last night, and he called me crying. And he said to me, he's like, Purvis, man, he said, I didn't realize how much I needed this book. And he said, it felt like our conversations, like our private conversations. And I really put myself out there, man. I really put a lot of personal things about myself in the book because I want to make myself vulnerable and tangible. And, you know, I really feel like it's a wonderful book. I really feel like it's going to really change a lot of lives and relationships.
So when will the book be released, and where can we get this?
The book will be released in January. I've been doing pre-orders, and I'm hoping to be able to ebook it this week. But I've been doing pre-orders off my site, survivalmode.com. So survivalmode.com. Yeah, and I've been doing workshops around the country. I was fortunate and blessed enough to do a workshop at Erica Campbell from Mary. Her
my
husband
sis.
Warren Campbell.
Yeah, that's
her and Warren.
Yeah, they're incredible people, man.
They're incredible people. I did my workshop for them, and they were just like, "Yo, when you coming back?" Like the men that they loved the workshop, and so hopefully I'll be doing a book signing at that church in January.
Okay, that's out in California, correct?
Yeah, out in LA. Yeah, and I've been doing it around. You know, I'm doing some workshops in Delaware and Philadelphia next year, and several people have been hitting me up because they heard me on Erica's show, and so many people have been hitting me up for requests for it. But yeah, man, the book is very powerful. It's a short read, but it's impactful, man. It's loaded with profundity. It's loaded with insight and nuggets and jewels. And whoever gets it, I know that they're going to be blessed.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. Please, as you can see, I'm a reader, and
Yes.
I'm looking forward to reading your book and getting a copy of this, and I'll be right in line to pay whatever it costs to get a copy of the Survival Mode by Brother Pervis Taylor III, and be able to pass on this important information, because this is really what we're talking about is some really important stuff, bro. It really, really is.
Yeah.
And it's the sad part about it is, and that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to discuss this, because I have not heard anyone, and maybe I'm not connected to the right people, but nobody else is talking. I don't feel like anybody else is talking about this, bruh.
You know what's funny?
In media,
You know what's funny?
I mean, whether it be TV, radio, podcasts, I don't hear this discussion. That's why I had to get you on.
You know what's funny? My friend said to me, he said, I'm so glad that the world is catching up to what you've been talking about. He said, because you've been doing this for almost 10 years. Like, I was talking about this stuff almost 10 years ago. And people have to understand, Yale University, Ivy League school, they have an emotional intelligence center where they're studying emotional intelligence in like depth, like they're picking it apart. But guess what? There's not one black person involved in that process. So again, we don't even have a seat at the table in the grand scheme of things in talking about emotional intelligence. And I happen to be one of the few men of color who do this for a living. And so like, it's weird. I feel like I'm pioneering. I don't want to be too braggadocious, but I feel like
let that out, man. Let that out, bro. Go.
I'm pioneering in teaching men of color emotional intelligence what our counterparts are talking about, and allowing our young men to. I mean, like just spit some receipts. We did a 6-week program on emotional intelligence at York College here in Queens, New York, and the result was the young men's grades improved. The way that they advocated for themselves improved. The way that they, like, things that we didn't intend to do, but they were byproducts of it, of the work that we taught them. You know what I mean? Like, they're more verbal. They're able to communicate more. They understand sensory language. They understand how to advocate for themselves. They understand how to identify and articulate the emotion that they're experiencing. They understand what they need to do to cope to deal with that emotion. What's something that they can do positively to cope with this emotion that they're experiencing? Like, things like that, like I can't even make that up. I couldn't even make it up. That's how much and how beneficial understanding emotional intelligence is for any human being, but especially young men of color.
No doubt, man. Hey, Pervis, man, we gotta get you to DC, bro. We got to get you to DC.
I actually did some work in DC at DC Trust. Have you heard of DC Trust?
Yeah, I remember when that place was open. I don't think they're in business anymore.
Yeah, I did some work with them. And stories from that, man.
But we gotta get you back out here when the book comes out, and if it happens, please, whatever I could do to help connect you with the right people to set up a forum for this discussion. To be able to talk about these things in the open and just to get the word out, bruh. Just let me know, man. I can connect you with all my radio people over here. Probably try to get you on television or whatever as well to make sure that this word gets out, because this conversation right here is so important, and it's definitely time for it. And I'm looking forward to reading your book, The Survival Mode by Pervis Taylor the third, bruh. Hey, man, before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to say anything that you didn't get an opportunity to say during the podcast. Go ahead.
All I want to say is thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about the work that I've been doing for a long time. And I need more help. You know what I mean? Like, me and my business partner, we need other brothers to help, along with this crusade of healing our black men and raising up whole black men. And so anybody out there who's ever had a passion for helping young men of color and changing the narrative, I encourage you to please go for it because we need your help. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be plenty of us out there teaching and helping young men to process.
The Street Report is a podcast that primarily focuses on African American culture and a whole lot more. Make sure you subscribe to The Street Report wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher. Please hit that button and subscribe. I'll be dropping a brand new podcast every week. You might want to turn on your notifications. Also follow @EasyStreet on Twitter and Instagram. The official website for The Street Report is EasyStreetShow.com. The Street Report podcast is being brought to you by, produced by, engineered by SIA Multimedia, a digital production company specializing in podcasts like this, social media strategies, and online social media commercials for your business. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @SIA Multimedia, or visit our website at SIAMultimedia.com. That's CYA Multimedia.com. SIA Multimedia, making sure all eyes are on you.
Brother, thanks for rolling with it, brother.